2021, Tuesday. Thanks for joining us. Really appreciate you being here. We are actually, there's a live version. We did a non-live version a little while ago talking about Nancy Pelosi, and I just am watching right now. My friend Thomas Massey is on the floor of the House defying, along with apparently 7 other Republicans, defying Nancy Pelosi's order to still wear a mask. It's something I talked about. Can we pull up that article? Is that gone?
I can find it.
Yeah, can find. Pull it up. Yeah, there was an article. I mean, the article led with. Yeah, there it goes. Led with Pelosi attacking Republican members of the House for not signing on for an investigation as to what happened on January 6th, the January 6th insurrection, as she calls it. Of course, she wants to keep that in the news as much as she possibly can. But towards the end of this article, down here, she talks about, meanwhile, despite new guidelines from the CDC relaxing mask wearing, including indoors, mind you, Pelosi has maintained that all members of Congress remain wearing masks on the premises. Pelosi was pressed on whether the House would now lift the mask mandate due to the new advice by the CDC. The House Speaker then replied if everyone in Congress was already vaccinated. So, and of course, this whole thing is preposterous. I mean, everybody, can get vaccinated if they want to. If they don't want to get vaccinated and they feel vulnerable, then they can wear a mask. This is just, bullying at this point, and it's people have had it up to here with it. Apparently, so has Thomas Massey, and he's organized people to defy the mask mandate by Nancy Pelosi, despite the fact that she says she's going to fine them $500 apiece. This seems very much like, it reminds me of when the NFL players went on strike in the 80s, and the fans started getting attacked by unions, sympathetic union members from, say, the Teamsters and other union outfits. And as soon as that video hit the airwaves, this is pre-internet, so that just made it to the news. As soon as it hit the airwaves, the lines, the union lines were broken, and players started returning straight away. And I feel like this is what's going to happen. I think Thomas et al. Are going to break Pelosi's will because she's completely out of line in this circumstance. So anyway, so that's just sort of a fun little minor victory. And then in the meantime, earlier in this article, Pelosi's talking about ripping the Republicans for denying the occurrence of January 6th insurrection, the lamest insurrection in the history. The only insurrection where people didn't show up with weapons, and just sort of vandalized and walked around the halls of the Capitol. It's preposterous, this whole thing, and we did a bit about it a little earlier today. We're going to edit it down and post it. So give that a look when you get a chance, because Pelosi's this is complete theater. This is Pelosi just by calling what happened on January 6th an insurrection. This is Pelosi, kowtowing and keeping the lasso around the neck of her audience, who are constantly looking for ways to hate Republicans. And I talked in that video earlier today about how Pelosi's whole goal is to just be as adversarial as possible, and with no sort of reasonable posture. And if you look at her, she's been the Speaker of the House. She got in 2008, lost it in 2010. Took it back a few years ago. Took it back in 2018. Her tenure as the Speaker has largely been disastrous. I mean, people focus on the fact that she became the Speaker, but she has accomplished very little other than strictly partisan legislation like Obamacare, for example. Obamacare was voted in on party lines. And that, by the way, that's never a good idea. A lot of legislation comes out of Washington that's bad, but you can virtually guarantee that anything that comes through strictly on party lines is bad business. And I say that for both sides of the aisle, and Obamacare clearly was. And so, Pelosi, again, she just knows how to get to the top. But when she gets to the top, she's an utter and unmitigated disaster. So, sorry, I'm getting dinged here. So anyway, take a look at that video when you get a chance. I want to just sort of jump off of politics for a second. Well, there's a little politics involved here. And talk about Charles Grodin, who was an actor. And he actually had a talk show for some time, I think in the 90s and early 2000s on MSNBC. Very funny guy, an actor, died today, 80-something, 83. Can you pull up an article about him? Yeah, you got him? So, Charles Grodin died. What was interesting, he was a guy who was in some really classic movies, a very funny guy. A lot of people know him from early in the 70s, The Heartbreak Kid, which was a funny movie. I always think of him in terms of the movie Midnight Run, which, a lot of funny movies from the 80s. I think this might be the funniest. I mean, I posted this on Twitter, and I sort of think, there was Ghostbusters and some other funny movies, but Charles Grodin was in Midnight Run. I think Midnight Run is super funny. I even turned it on today. It's still a funny movie. If you ever get a chance to watch it, it's a ride. He steals every single scene that he's in. A bit of a lefty, actually. I think more moderate on the left in terms of what we're seeing these days. I don't think he was a hardcore progressive, but he was definitely a lefty, but a talented guy, and I'd recommend watching that movie in particular, Midnight Run, and then also a political movie that he was in. That's not a heavy political movie, called Dave, where Kevin Kline plays a presidential impersonator who actually has to fill in for the president who has a stroke and he's in a coma. And Charles Grodin's very funny in that too. So anyway, R.I.P. Charles Grodin. It was you had a great run, and real pleasure to watch your work in those movies. Okay, moving on. Let's shift gears. Can you pull this one up, Mario? This article about how the Biden administration is saying that Trump did nothing regarding the Middle East. Yeah. So, all right, you can say a lot of things about Trump if you don't like him. A small percentage of the Republican Party are never Trumpers. Something about that, his personality, totally get it, turns them off. I think a lot of never Trumpers wonder how people who liked Trump, and I've liked Trump since the 80s. How people, who like Trump can possibly do it because his personality is such a big turnoff to them. But, if you can, even the never Trumpers, I think, would have to admit that Trump accomplished a few things. One of the things he did was, and this is, I got to say, I mean, he really, say what you want about him. He thought outside the box. I mean, I thought the whole idea of trying to acquire Greenland was brilliant. I mean, even if it didn't fly, I mean, do you remember when he talked about that? And the administration didn't deny it because they were contemplating making an offer to somehow, acquire Greenland and bring it into the United States. I thought that was genius. And in fact, he got, kind of ridiculed, with no surprise, got ridiculed by the mainstream media. But had Obama suggested that the United States acquire Greenland, they would have said he was a visionary, because it's a really clever idea. And when you look at it, it kind of makes sense. I think what Trump was trying to do was have his own, annexation of Alaska, which I don't think anybody knows has been a big win for the United States in the end. And Greenland just sort of makes sense. It's not heavily populated. It's close enough. It really sort of, could benefit from a connection to the United States, a stronger connection by becoming part of the United States. And I thought that was brilliant. And by the same token, Trump also thought outside the box on the Middle East. He was told by people that you have to have a global agreement, a global peace agreement with all of the Arab countries in the Middle East, or else nothing would ever work. This is what the experts thought. What's that? This is what the experts thought. And so what did Trump do? He went the opposite direction. What he did was, instead of having multilateral agreements, he had individual agreements with people, with countries that are known as the Abrahamic Accords. Now, I don't know. It seems like if you can't get peace with everybody, you should have peace with as many people as you possibly can. So that's what Trump did. He looked at it differently, and his team took a different approach. I just thought that was brilliant. And so for the White House to come up here and say that Trump did nothing constructive for Middle East peace is astounding. But here's the icing on the cake. We're in the middle of a moment where Hamas is attacking Israel. Israel and Hamas are effectively in you could call it a skirmish. It's kind of a war that happened under the Biden administration. And at this moment, they're choosing to say that Donald Trump did nothing constructive for Middle East peace. Okay. I mean, these people are completely clueless. I have to tell you, I just wonder how long the mainstream media can continue to the point where even they can't stomach their own silliness and ridiculousness. So in any event, we'll see how this plays on. But this is a clearly preposterous position to take, that Trump did nothing. I mean, I think we're going to check. We're going to get the opportunity to test and see if some people are going to be shoved down the memory hole. If we're going to find this Orwellian situation where they're going to try and erase Trump from history. I don't know. Maybe these are the sort of the first fledgling steps, the baby steps towards doing that, because this is clearly an absurd and ludicrous position. Even if you don't like Trump, even if you're a Republican, never Trump, or even if you don't, you just can't say that he didn't accomplish something really substantial and really interesting and frankly amazing in the Middle East. So anyway, let's move on. Are you there, Mario?
Yes.
Okay. Can you go ahead and pull up that article about, it was actually something I tweeted about Trump responding, Biden responding about whether or not he could, someone could ask him a question about Israel while he was driving a Ford truck. Go to my Twitter feed. It's in there. Oh, you can't do it from, go to my Twitter feed. Yeah. So anyway, so, Biden is out. Okay, so let me just set this up a little bit. So Biden, has all of the earmarks of somebody who obviously has dementia. I'm not breaking, this is not groundbreaking, stuff here. I mean, he's babbling. And, for those people who are pushing this business that he's a lifelong stutterer, forgive me, but bullshit. I've watched this guy since, and been aware of him since the 80s. He didn't stutter before. He wasn't a stutterer or a stammerer. That's bullshit. And, he's been a senator for 50 years. He's got elected in the 70s. And there was no stutter or stammer. He's been in front of huge congressional hearings. He ran for president in 88. This fabrication that he's a stutter and stammerer, and that's the reason why he has difficulty speaking sometimes, is complete nonsense. He's geriatric. He's got dementia, some form of dementia. It's evident. And one of the evident elements of dementia is that when the sufferer, can't remember something or doesn't want to deal with something, they get angry. So remember, like Biden was in some car plant and some union guy challenged him on something, and Biden like stepped up to him like he was going to fight him. And some other guy was challenging him at another event. This is during the campaign, the 2020 campaign. It might have happened in a couple of these episodes happened in 2019, but certainly in 2020. He got really angry and he said and challenged a guy to a push-up contest. Back in the 80s, he did this sort of thing. He's got this sort of angry streak where when people challenge him, he doesn't like to be challenged. Guy called him, oh, this was a big one. You got to check this out. 1988. This is before, by the way, Biden got busted for plagiarizing speeches from famous people. He was, told people, somebody said he's got a low IQ. Some reporter, said that, and Biden got furious and he started rattling off all his academic credentials. I was a scholar. I was the number one political student in my law school. I got voted number one top political student. I finished in the top half of my class in law school, which, by the way, isn't that, top half of your class? Okay, fine, whatever. But I was on scholarship, and they found out every single thing he said was a lie. He basically finished at the bottom of his class at Syracuse Law. There was no political club, that he was supposedly the student of the year. All nonsense. And then on top of it, he was plagiarizing. But when he got confronted, he got really angry and so this is a thing with him, and it's gotten worse since the dementia set. And so we've got this article. It was a